We're on a road to nowhere. Come on inside. Taking that ride to nowhere. We'll take that ride. I'm feeling okay this morning. And you know, we're on the road to paradise. Here we go, here we go. There's a city in my mind. Come along and take that ride, and it's alright, baby, it's alright. And it's very far away, but it's growing day by day, and it's alright, baby, it's alright. Would you like to come along, and you can help me sing this song, and it's alright, baby, it's alright. There's a city in my mind. Come along and take that ride, and it's alright, baby, it's alright. And it's very far away, but it's growing day by day. It's alright, baby, it's alright. They could tell you what to do, but they'll make a fool of you, and it's alright, baby, it's alright.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. I'm anticipating a few new people tonight, and I just want to give a heads up that I am mostly blind, so I want to give that disclaimer, and also because of that, I'm not able to see your comments. However, my guest, Comrade Misty, can certainly give you a shout out or answer questions or address anything. So just as a heads up. But thank you so much for joining, and thank you, Misty, for coming on my show. That's been way past due.
Well, thanks for having me. I mean, I appreciate you giving me a chance to come on, talk about Assange, the event, all of that stuff that we have coming up. So yeah, thanks for letting me come and hang out with you.
Absolutely. So I think, we were just kind of touching on the fact that, the Assange case is something you really have to keep up on every freaking day, because there's just shit constantly changing. And so where are we right now?
Okay, so that's always such a loaded question because I never really know, like, how far back do I go to, like, make sure that people are aware of what's happening. And it's a lot. I mean, if we're being real, this is over a decade now of shenanigans. So currently where we are is, as is usually the case, we are in a state of limbo. A few weeks ago, the Assange defense team submitted what's called a perfected grounds for appeal. Basically, they submitted for an appeal to the Supreme Court in the UK. And in the UK, what happens is you have to apply for an appeal, and then the court decides whether or not they even want to hear that appeal. They denied that request. And so what has happened now is the legal team has gone back, and this is kind of a Hail Mary. And so they're doing what's called a perfected grounds for appeal. And that's basically just, they've gone back through and they're kind of like going through with a fine tooth comb to say, hey, look, really, you should hear our appeal. So we don't have a deadline for a decision on that. There's never any deadline. It's always just leaving us in a perpetual state of scramble. So that's essentially, that's where we're at right now. And if that is denied, if that perfected grounds for appeal is denied, Assange can be extradited literally any minute to the United States.
Which, I guarantee 99% of the people watching know about Assange and support Assange. But just to break it down, how fucked are we as far as journalists, as far as the left or whatever you want to call it, as far as an educated people? How fucked are we if they are going to persecute whistleblowers and journalists like this?
It's not good. I can say that. It's not great. It's not looking good for the home team. This is really, really bad. And I get a lot of heat and a lot of shit at times because people think that I am too dramatic about it, or that I'm too obsessed with it, or whatever. And for me, and I realize that there's a potential that I'm biased here, but for me, this case is the front line for literally everything else that we're doing. For example, in your situation, fighting for healthcare, you can't fight for healthcare if you don't have the freedom and the ability to educate yourself and others, to have conversations, to protest, to get information out. That makes those fights really kind of impossible. And really, essentially, what the Assange extradition and persecution is the complete dismantling of the First Amendment in all forms. We've seen the consistent attacks on protests. We've seen the way that protesters are brutalized. We've seen the way that now journalists are being brutalized at protests who are just covering the events. And so this is something that's been escalating for a really long time. And Assange is kind of the linchpin. This is kind of, this case is really the turning point. He will be the first journalist ever charged under the Espionage Act. That's something that has typically been reserved for people who are whistleblowers. And that's an important distinction to make. Assange is not a whistleblower. He is a journalist and publisher. He's very often lumped in with whistleblowers because of his relationship with people like Edward Snowden and Chelsea Manning. But he is a journalist. And so that really does make this a very different case than, an Ed Snowden or a Chelsea Manning or a Daniel Hale situation. So he will be the first journalist ever charged under the Espionage Act. And I think it's also important to point out that he's a foreign journalist. So he's not American. So he will be, he's an Australian journalist being charged under the American Espionage Act while being afforded none of the protections of the First Amendment. So this is essentially the United States seeking global jurisdiction over information and journalism. And that means no one is safe anywhere, anytime. And what's really terrifying about that is that they get to decide what defines a journalist. They get to decide what defines journalism. So this could come for any of us at any time. If you tweet, if you have a blog, if you make YouTube videos, whatever you do, this really could impact all of us. And so to me, this is kind of a turning point in human history, this case. It's not looking good. This is a really scary situation that we're in. And only bad things will come if we allow this to continue.
Absolutely. And I mean, shout out to Edward Snowden. Yesterday he had a bit of a victory. Now he's a Russian citizen. So now he can finally see his family and, cue the xenophobia to everyone who's like, that traitor. But it's, I actually met you in DC for 2 days. We did the other Assange actions out front of the DOJ and the embassy. And, a guy walked by and he goes, Assange is a fucking traitor. I was like, he's not American, you fucking idiot.
That's my favorite. That is my favorite. It is, listen, Assange gets smeared with all manner of things, right? Like he's a hacker, he's a rapist, he's a racist, he's a white supremacist, he's all of these things. But traitor always makes me giggle because he's not American. And that it's just, he can't possibly be a traitor. He has no allegiance to the United States, and he was under no contract. He signed nothing. He's an Australian journalist and publisher. And so, that always makes me giggle a little bit. But yeah, the Snowden thing is fantastic. It's annoying because every time Ed Snowden pops up into the news, people talk about how he fled to Russia. He didn't flee to Russia. He got stuck in Russia when he was, after he left Hong Kong, he was trying to get to Ecuador. And it's thanks to Julian Assange and WikiLeaks, actually, that Edward Snowden is not also in a prison cell right now. Ed Snowden was not their source. But when Julian Assange heard that he was in trouble and that he needed to get to safety, they immediately leapt into action, and at great personal risk to himself and Sarah Harrison, they made valiant efforts to make sure that Snowden got to safety. And it is legitimately thanks to them that he is not in prison right now.
Absolutely. That's something I hear a lot too, that Assange is a hacker. Yeah. And there's never been any proof of that whatsoever. And the thing that's so scary is that literally all he's doing is printing or putting on the internet what other people have given him. That's it. just literally uploading something.
That's literally journalism. This criminalizes journalism. That is the definition of what a journalist does. You contact sources, you seek to get information. When that information is given to you and verified, you publish it if it's in the public interest. And we should point out that WikiLeaks has also never gotten it wrong. Not a single time. They've never had to retract a single word that they've ever published. In over a 15-year history and having published millions of documents, that's an unbelievable feat. And it's not to me, I think what the best thing about WikiLeaks is that what they offer us is not conjecture. There's no opinion. It's not some talking heads yelling at each other. It's not some thought piece. It is 100% verifiable and authenticated source documentation. It's just the facts in black and white. Here it is. You read it. You decide how to, process it and comprehend and put it in its place. And that, I think, is so valuable to humanity, especially given the fact that so much of our history is rewritten and whitewashed and all of that stuff. The idea that somebody is giving us just the facts is really something we need more of.
Absolutely. And that's why they're the biggest threat. Because they've never had to retract something. That's never happened ever with anyone else. That is daunting to our country. It's incredible. And also, I do want to, and I'm sure our audience knows this, but I do want to break down, whenever you talk about Assange, people are always like, Hillary. That's not why he's in trouble. That is not why. So if you could just kind of break down the actual reason of why he is being persecuted and perhaps maybe extradited, the actual case.
Yes, you're right, and especially the neoliberal people, the shit libs, if you will. That's immediately what they jump to. Oh, he's helped Russia get Trump elected, and he hurt Hillary. That has, first of all, no, it's not true. Second of all, that has nothing to do with why he's being persecuted. So what he is in prison for, frankly, he's in prison for no reason whatsoever. He's being held on remand currently. So that just means he's being held because the United States says so. But the court case that he is facing is related to the 2010 era Chelsea Manning leaks about the Iraq and Afghanistan war and the Guantanamo files. So that would include, probably the most famous piece of information would be the collateral murder video, which is, I think, about a 38-minute long video of 2 Apache helicopters murdering civilians and journalists in the streets of Baghdad. But that's just really the most famous piece of information. It's an unbelievable amount of evidence for war crimes, rape, torture, the slaughter of children in front of their parents, you name it. Not just he, I say this because he's the one in prison, but WikiLeaks gave the names back to 15,000 civilian victims of our war crimes. So there were 15,000 civilian deaths that were previously unreported, because we like to underreport our murder and casualty rates in war because it makes us look bad. So 15,000 people were given their names back thanks to WikiLeaks. And are now known as victims of United States imperialism. And, it really just, there's no way that I could list all of the things that were revealed in those leaks, but that is what he's being persecuted for. So he's being, really murdered in slow motion for exposing the war crimes of George W. Bush and Dick Cheney. And I highly, highly, highly recommend. Listen, it's not fun, it's not sexy, it's not exciting to dig through a mountain of emails, but I highly recommend, if you can't go through them yourself, there are lots of reporters who have done that work for you and have written up some of the more pressing issues that were exposed in those leaks. People like Kevin Gosztola and John Pilger and Craig Murray, Chris Hedges. Go and read about what those leaks expose if you're not familiar with it. I guarantee you will become infuriated, and it will give you a whole new respect for Julian Assange and WikiLeaks.
Absolutely. And I do want to say, even as a blind person, WikiLeaks is incredibly user-friendly. They have a search button, and you just type a word or a sentence, and it gives you everything back a decade. I mean, it is so excellent and so well done. Trust me, in 2016, I used that shit quite a bit.
In 2016, I was like the Dave Chappelle meme of like the crackhead, like, hey, you got any more of those leaks? Like, I could not get enough.
I did that too.
Yeah. It was like every day I woke up and I'm like, it's Christmas. There's going to be more.
Yeah. It was great. And I remember marching in those streets at Occupy DNC in Philly for 6 days, just like getting those updates like, yes, more. Yes, yes. But
Thank you, Julian. Thank you,
what's
Julian.
that?
Thank you, Julian.
Yes.
Thank you for that, sir. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, and on that topic, it's like, you know, we hear all the time, but her emails. But the fact of the matter is, it's not the fact that there are emails. It's the fact of what was in the emails. So it's so easy to be like, fuck Assange, fuck Russia, and all this bullshit narrative. But at the same time, it's like, you're not accepting what is in those emails. The disgusting anti-Semitism and racism and cheating and everything like that. And Assange gave us that. And they're like, well, why is he only helping Hillary? Why is he only hurting Hillary? Well, Assange literally said in several interviews, I've tried to find stuff on Trump. There is nothing worse than what he does publicly.
Yeah. He even tried, like everybody tries to say, oh, well, he was trying to help Trump because he was DMing Donald Trump Jr. Yeah, he was fishing for information. He was trying to get Trump Jr. to give him his dad's tax returns. He tried to get stuff on Trump. That's what he does. I mean, do you really think that Julian Assange from WikiLeaks, doing what he does, loving what he does the way that he does, that he wouldn't publish something on Trump if he got it? Of course he would. Are you joking? That's gold for him. Like, it's insane. And I love the whole, well, he helped Trump get elected. Well, Trump sure had a funny way of thanking him. He had him arrested. Like, that's, you think he helped Trump get arrested? Or you think he helped Trump get elected and then Trump arrested him? Like, that, it makes no sense whatsoever. And the whole Russia connection thing has been debunked so thoroughly. And it's so funny that they, they try to claim that Julian Assange was, some kind of aid to Russia to get Trump elected. And then throughout the whole Russiagate saga and the Mueller report and all of that stuff, Julian Assange very publicly said, hey, I am totally willing to cooperate with this investigation. You can come. I will talk to you. And it's weird. They never once talked to him. Not a one time. It seems a little strange that the guy that they're, claiming helped Trump beat Hillary and helped Russia get Trump elected, and they didn't bother to talk to him a single time. It's interesting. Yeah, absolutely. It's like, I really wish, sometimes I fantasize if Julian could have just got those tax returns or something on Trump, it would have changed everything, It would have been totally different. But Hillary can't take responsibility for anything. So it's good to blame him. Yeah, but it's classic shoot the messenger stuff. They want to, instead of looking internally as a Democrat, you would much rather lash out at Julian Assange for releasing those emails rather than blame Hillary Clinton and the DNC for the content of the emails. That's a much easier thing than doing like an internal examination of yourself and your party and the corruption that is so rampant within it. Absolutely. So where do we go from here? I mean, I know, of course, you are a fellow activist, you are an organizer, feet in the street. What else can we do? I mean, there's so many things that we can do. It's just really a matter of getting people willing to do it. And that it's really difficult to get people. I think right now people feel very defeated. They feel helpless, hopeless. And so it's difficult to really get people galvanized enough to want to do the necessary things to get something accomplished. And that's really frustrating as an activist and an organizer. I also understand it. Like, I get that kind of despair that people are feeling right now. we're really in a big shithole, and that's it's really overwhelming what we're facing. But there are really so many things that people can do. I know you can feel like, oh, I'm just one person. One person can make a phone call a day. One person can send an email a day. And listen, I'm not a fool. I understand that phone calls and emails are not going to be like, you know, the galvanizing thing that gets Julian Assange free. But what does get Julian Assange free, and what does potentially save the future of press freedom and free speech, is mass public pressure. And so your one email a day times, you know, 1,000 people times, you know, and then if we continue to grow that, and then suddenly it's 10,000 a day, and then suddenly it's 20,000 a day. That's how we've always gotten change in this country. Every time there's ever been a movement of change, it has been because of mass public pressure. And so we need people to get in the streets, to come to the events like we're organizing on October 8th, to organize your own events. And really, with the Assange thing, what's one of the biggest things that we're facing is that it's a major media blackout. Y'all, they don't talk about this. And that should be very telling to you, because listen, not only is this case, the future of press freedom hangs in the balance, and yet no mainstream media journalists are talking about it, but it's a story, you guys. I don't know how familiar your audience is. I'm sure they're very familiar. You have a very intelligent audience who's, you know, aware of things. But this is a story. I mean, this is a guy who has been subjected to psychological torture for over a decade. He was spied on by the CIA through a Spanish security firm called UC Global. That includes conversations with his legal team. There were plots to murder him or to kidnap him, including like conversations about shootouts in the streets of London. I mean,
Hillary, can't we just drone this guy?
Yes. I mean, Donald Trump
admitted she said it.
Yeah, she said it out loud, like it was nothing. Donald Trump is very similar. Can't we just assassinate this guy? Or I think there should be the death penalty for this guy or whatever. Yeah, it's a story. It's juicy. And so the idea that nobody's covering it and nobody's talking about it, I think is very telling, and it's very indicative of how desperate they are to keep this quiet. Because I think, and this has been my experience, when most people are introduced to this case and they start to figure out what is actually happening, it's very easy to turn them into a supporter, because it's a very cut and dry thing. It's what's happening to him is beyond horrendous. The number of human rights violations that this man has had to go through. They, you know, were trying to steal the diaper of his child, and they were stalking his family, and like I said, spying on him and every single one of his visitors, including like cloning their electronic devices and copying all their paperwork. And I mean, you name it, they've done it. They had microphones in the women's bathroom in the UC or in the Ecuadorian embassy in the UK, so that they could spy on him, because that's where, you know, everybody used to laugh at him and call him paranoid, because, you know, he thought there was this sealed indictment and he thought he was being spied on. Everybody laughed, oh, he's so paranoid. Turns out he was right every single time. But yeah, it's a story. And so that the idea that it's very clear that this is something that they want to do as much under the cover of darkness, and as much they want to hide behind the smear campaign that they've launched against him. They've tried to really demonize him and turn him into kind of a comic book villain, because then people become incredibly apathetic to what's happening to him. They don't care, because they heard he's an asshole. So what do they care what happens to him, right? So yeah, it's very frustrating to me that especially journalists are not speaking out on this more.
Absolutely. And I think right now, you know, especially with Ukraine and Russia, we are seeing so many people say they're anti-imperialist. Yeah. If you are an anti-imperialist, you should be cheering for Assange. You should be posting about Assange. You should be signing up to get his emails from his brother that are amazing and giving updates. And this should be your thing. You should be, sharing posts about these events. You can't say you're anti-imperialism and ignore a person who has exposed the exact thing that you are saying you are against.
No one has done more. No one. And no one. I refuse to even take the criticism of, oh, you're biased. That's not up for debate. No one
No.
has done more to expose the US empire than Julian Assange. No one has done more to throw his body on the gears of empire than Julian Assange. Period. End of story. That is not up for debate. He has broken more stories and exposed more corruption and war crimes than all other journalists combined. I mean, this is not, it's not a question. There's no debate. There's no conversation needed to be had. And you're right. And it's anti-imperialist. And also there's a lot of people running around claiming to be anti-fascist who are completely silent about what's happening to Julian Assange. And in the words of Richard Medhurst, oh, you're anti-fascist? Then show me, man. Because if you claim to be anti-fascist and you're not standing up against what's happening to Julian Assange, you're doing it wrong. There is no greater example of blatant fascism than the attempt to silence journalism and dissent, period. That is the first thing that fascists do, is they try to silence dissent and opposition. And that is exactly what they're doing with silencing Julian Assange. And it doesn't stop with him. We've already seen it. We've seen the incredible increase in censorship all across the board. You've experienced it. I've experienced it. It's coming for all of us. They want to silence any and all dissent. They want to force feed you a narrative, and they want to manufacture your reality.
Absolutely. And I think, you brought up a good point earlier that I was also going to touch on. You said with healthcare, this would affect it as well. And I want people to think about, like, every single time you read an article exposing, even if it's talking about, bills, votes in the House, things like that. Every single time you read anything, whether it's big pharma, whether it's oil companies, you might not see any of that shit in the future. It'll be like literally before we had internet and shit, when everybody got their news from one station, one time a night, because it'll just be talking heads nonstop. There will be no discourse. There will be nothing. That should terrify you. That should absolutely terrify you.
And these are people who are, come on, y'all, they're psychopaths. They have lied us into how many wars? They've lied to us about how many things. They have been destroying the people of this country and around the world for decades. And now we are going to give them full and complete control over the narrative? No, thank you. I do not think so. Everybody should be fighting against that taking place. And I don't think that this is like me being overly dramatic or alarmist, but listen, Jacinda Ardern just gave a speech where she likened speech to a weapon of war. Do you see what's happening here? They want to shut down any and all opposition to them. That means that there is going to be one sole source of information. They are going to force feed you that narrative, and you are not going to have any ability to challenge it whatsoever. And these are people that I don't want to have that level of power and control. None of us should. None of us should. And we have to fight against it now. We're losing the ability to fight back now. Like, the longer we wait on this, the harder it's going to be. They are very quickly taking away our ability to even protest, to redress our government. So the clock is ticking. We don't have a lot of time on this. And just in a more specific situation, Julian Assange doesn't have much time. Dude is not doing well. His health has been failing for some time. And I mean, listen, he's been in the conditions that he has been forced to live in and being subjected to psychological torture. And that's not me, being dramatic and saying he's been subjected to psychological torture. That is former UN Special Rapporteur on torture, Nils Melzer, and the physicians that he had go with him to examine Julian Assange when he was in Belmarsh. He is a torture victim. He is currently being tortured for the crime of journalism, again, simply for telling the truth.
Yeah, I know. I've read some of his stuff saying that they were having voices say things in his cell so that when he would go to court, he would seem mad and, putting him in this mental distress so that he would go to court and just seem out of it. They are torturing him.
They wouldn't even let him sit with his attorneys in his own trial. They put him behind a plexiglass wall like he's Hannibal Lecter. You know what I'm saying? When that happened, during those 3 weeks of hearings where he was put behind this plexiglass wall with armed guards, he's a journalist. He has no history of violence. He's very soft-spoken. He's very gentle. Like everybody I've ever spoken to who knows him, and I have spoken to many people, family members, friends, everybody. And everybody says he's very gentle, very kind. Like he's very, very intense. But he's a journalist. He's not like some terrorist. And during that time, I went and I looked, and y'all, they let BTK, a serial killer, sit with his attorneys. They let, you know, like the Unabomber, and you know what I'm saying? Like people who are legitimately dangerous human beings were allowed to sit in the presence of their attorneys and participate in their own defense. And that is all for the optics of things. Again, they want to make, they want to create this comic book villain out of him. And that's just part of it. And yeah, I mean, the stuff that they've done to him, they gave him a laptop with the keys glued down. You know, they strip searched him multiple times every time he had to go to court. During the COVID stuff, they wouldn't even let him appear in court. They made him appear via video link. I mean, it's insane. Literally, if you go through, there was a couple winters ago that they refused to give him his winter clothes. And he was like insulating his window with books because it was freezing. You know, just the things that he has been subjected to. Again, the number of human rights violations in this case are enormous, and just, I mean, it's embarrassing as somebody who proclaims to be like a member of a civilized society, the greatest nation on earth, that's the way that we treat people.
Absolutely. If he does get extradited, he will go to Virginia. Is that correct?
Yeah, he will be held in the same holding facility that Chelsea Manning was held in, where she attempted on her own life. They don't have a great record there, and they don't have a great they don't have a great medical staff either. And he has known medical issues, severe medical issues. He had a mini stroke last October, and that is usually an early indicator of something more serious to come. And they don't have the capacity to deal with that type of a situation. He would almost certainly be held in solitary confinement. He is currently essentially being held in what is solitary confinement. Yeah, he will be held in that holding facility until he goes to trial, likely in the Eastern District of Virginia, in which you don't win in the Eastern District of Virginia in espionage court. Nobody wins. John Kiriakou, who's an amazing CIA whistleblower, one of the speakers at our event, has spoken about this at length. You don't win there. You don't get to present a public interest defense. You don't get, it all happens behind closed doors. It's basically just a formality. It is just going through the motions to pretend that there's some sense of justice, but you don't win there. And then he would almost certainly be sent to probably a communications management unit, similar or what Daniel Hale is being held in, because they promised that they wouldn't send him to a special administrative measures prison, but it's the same damn thing. They just changed the name. So basically that just means that you're thrown in a hole and forgotten about. The staff at those facilities are trained not to have any interaction with the prisoners there. You have very limited visits, very limited phone calls. When you do have visits and phone calls, they're all spied on. Like there's somebody in the room listening at every time. Your family is not allowed to discuss the conditions in which you're being held in. It's basically, you're just thrown in a hole and forgotten about. And he's facing 175 years of that.
That's daunting. And, you know, I'm in Pennsylvania. I know you're in Ohio, and I know times are tough, and I know money is, I know as an organizer, like I know. Yeah. But if he gets to Virginia, we've got to fucking go there. We have to. We have to. Even if it's for 2 days, even if like we have to. Fucking Johnny Depp, okay, in Virginia, people were fucking out there every fucking day for months with fucking alpacas and shit. So I'm sorry, we have to. And if you can't make it, donate to a crowdfunding or something. This is so fucking important. And honestly, I really do feel like, you know, your kids and grandkids, when they learn about this, they're going to say, what did you do? What did you do? Were you silent? Did you complain on Twitter? Did you do something? This is going to be one of those cases where you're going to set a legacy, and you either want to be proud or be, a slacktivist. And and I also wanted to say, last time I had Marianne Williamson on my show, she made a good point. She said that if, what Julian did, she's a huge supporter, obviously. What Julian did is very much, by releasing the things about Bush, is very much very comparable to the New York Times publishing the Panama Papers.
Pentagon Papers.
What's that?
The Pentagon Papers, the Ellsberg case. Is that what you're talking about? Yeah.
Yeah.
And Daniel Ellsberg, who is the guy that leaked the Pentagon Papers, has said that numerous times. The cases are very similar. Yeah. Well, and that's why Obama didn't go after Julian Assange, because of the New York Times problem. Because if you go after Julian Assange for publishing these documents, you then also should, if you're being consistent, they're not going to be. But if you're being consistent, you should then also be going after the Washington Post, the New York Times, Der Spiegel, El País, all of the other organizations and outlets that publish the information as well. Because WikiLeaks didn't do this on their own. WikiLeaks they were the organization that got the leaks, but they were self-aware enough to know that they were too small of an organization to get the proper attention on something as big as this was, and they knew that they were going to need help, and so they reached out to the largest publications on earth in order to get the due and necessary attention on these leaks. And I mean, people always say, oh, Assange is a narcissist. If Assange was a narcissist, he would have published it just himself. He wouldn't have asked for any help. He would have just done it for himself and been like, yeah, I'm cool. Instead, he knew we don't have the notoriety and the credibility to publish this and get the necessary and due attention that this needs. So we're going to reach out to people who can get that. And so, yeah, I mean, that you can't, if you're going to go after Julian Assange, you should also be going after the New York Times, the Washington Post, and everybody else who's published information similar to this. And you then also have to, and this is what I'm worried about, everybody moving forward who publishes, national security journalism, you're at risk now. You could go to prison for the rest of your life for doing your job.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we talk about CIA, FBI, they're going to take this down just because I said that. I know they will. That's why, yay, Rockfin. But yeah, I mean, we already get, bumped for shit like that. And that's fucking scary. And the mass surveillance now is insane. I mean, there's, cameras everywhere. They have those freaking, robot dogs. And it's just so freaking scary. This is and I don't care if you say people call you too hyped up and shit, but I'm sorry. This is some 1984 shit. We're going to get barcode tattoos on the back of our fucking necks. There's a guy in Maryland who just ran for office who literally wanted microchips in people's fucking wrists. It's bananas. And if people think it can't get like that, this shit is the first thing. And
it already is like that, y'all. You don't need a chip in your wrist. They have you carry around a chip. Right. You carry this around. And that's something else that WikiLeaks, and I do want to tell this story because to me it speaks to the quality of Julian Assange's character and to his courage. In March of 2017, and now mind you, he's already years into illegal and arbitrary detention. That's again not me defining it. That is the UN who said he was illegally and arbitrarily detained. So he's years into illegal and arbitrary detention. And in March of 2017, he knew he was public enemy number one of the world's largest empire, he published Vault 7, the world's largest CIA leak. The balls that it takes to be Julian Assange and to know that they're already coming for you. They already hate you. They already want you dead. They already want you in prison. And to publish Vault 7, which everybody, if you haven't read it, please go read it, or read somebody, Kevin Gostola, or somebody who's done a brilliant write-up and a kind of a compilation of all of the things released in it, because it exposed so many things of what you just talked about, how they're able to use your smartphone and your smart TV to spy on you, how they're able to manipulate your vehicle if they want to. And interestingly enough, it showed that the CIA has the capability to hack into a computer system and then leave footprints that make it look like it was somebody else. Like, maybe Russia. I'm just saying they could do that.
Absolutely. I shared a story a couple nights ago. I was in Philly. I was speaking at a net neutrality march, and we had the event right outside of AT&T. And I'm not kidding you. We all started marching, over 1,000 of us. All of our cell phones shut off. All of them.
Yeah.
Completely shut off during that march until we got past a certain point. Kid you not. So I was live.
Happens all the time. Happens all the time. Every time I go to DC for a protest, my phone is a little funky. Things don't work quite right. Things shut off. I don't get text messages. Yeah, that's unsurprising to me. that happens all the time.
Well, and you saw I posted the other night, my girlfriend from Iran, they were doing that. They shut down the entire country's internet. The entire country, done. Nobody has internet for several days. Our country has the capability to do that.
I don't think that they won't. They will. They will 100% do that if they think it serves their needs.
Oh yeah. The only reason they haven't yet is because they make too much fucking money by having our, having these ads and shit.
Yeah, they don't have to either. They're able to manipulate the narrative and the discourse. They're able to keep us fighting amongst ourselves rather than focusing on them. So they're able to control us through other means. They don't have to shut off our internet yet. But if it comes to it, and if they think that that's something that, if it's like, they need that last Hail Mary or whatever to kind of squash communication, they would absolutely do that without hesitation.
And they will say it's some kind of fluke.
No, they'll say it was Russia. Russia.
Well,
oh my God!
That's true too. Yeah, that's true.
Like Rachel Maddow, what would you do if Putin turned off your electricity? Bitch, please, we don't have to worry about Putin turning off our electricity. We have to worry about, PG&E can't keep electricity on in California. They got to go through like cycled shutdowns and all that stuff. Like, we don't have to worry about Russia. We don't have our shit together here. Like, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, they would blame it on Russia or Iran or China. 100%.
True. Very true. Well, I know you and I kind of DM about activism and organizing a lot. And, I was with you for 2 days in DC and it was excellent. A lot of times people say, well, what's the point? Yeah. What is this going to change? Is this going to bring out Julian Assange? Is this going to set him free? But I want to make it very clear that we say solidarity online and stuff, and we mean it in our heart. We mean we are solidarity with these people, but there is no solidarity like standing side by side in the streets with people you don't even know, who you are there for the same exact purpose, and you are there to speak truth to power, and you are there to take on the machine. I just got goosebumps. It is such an incredible feeling. It's my kink. It is amazing. That is the point.
It's energizing. It is energizing. I leave DC every time exhausted because it is a lot of fucking work. But energized. Like, I feel like, okay, we can do this. And you're right. Like, and I get that all the time too. Like, oh, what's the point? Protests are stupid. Protests are not stupid. Is it going to save Julian Assange's life, us going to DC on October 8th? Of course not. I'm not an idiot. I know that that's not what's going to happen. Like, oh, we're going to show up and Merrick Garland's suddenly going to be like, oh, you're right. I totally screwed up. Let him go. Of course not. But what it does is it brings people together for a common cause. It allows us to form community. It allows us to have conversations and to brainstorm and to figure out where we go from here there and to just recharge our batteries and be amongst people who get it, who are of a common mind. And that is really powerful. And it is something that is, to me as an activist and as somebody who gives a shit, it's necessary. Like, I need to be in those spaces with other people who I know understand. Like, I don't have to explain it. I don't have to like go through the whole thing about why you should care. Everybody just gets it. And that's a really powerful thing to experience. And it's also just really good to, to show the people in power that we see them, that they're not able to get away with this in the dark, that we are paying attention, and to kind of just, show that that kind of the mass public pressure. That's what we need. We need to get out there and to show them that you can't do this in the dark. We are going to call it out. We're going to grow. When we started Action for Assange, there was very little ground action for Julian Assange in the United States. There was a couple of small groups who would do things here and there, some kind of like professional activist group who like run websites and do seminars and stuff, which is fine. But there was very little ground action. And now there are groups cropping up all over the place. There's one in Tulsa. There's one in the Bay Area. There's one in Boston. There's a new one that just formed in DC. There's people in Chicago. There's people, we have people, kind of building their own movements in their own local communities now. And we're able to organize on a regular basis in Washington, D.C. And every time we do, there's more people that come out. People give a shit all the time. Oh, you only had like 30 people. I'm like, yeah, it's 30 people. And the last time we only had 15. And really, it's like we get like 100 people now or whatever. And that's from like nothing. We started from nothing. So it is building. And you have to start somewhere. Every movement starts somewhere. It starts with like two people in a room having a conversation, and then it grows from there. And that's what that's about. It's about growing a movement. It's about showing solidarity. It's about, just being in community with people and it just kind of recharging your batteries and, feeling like, we can actually do this, because it's going to take all of us.
Absolutely. And yeah, oh, you had 15 people. Well, how many did you fucking have? None.
0. You sat at home on your ass and did nothing.
Exactly.
I love those people.
Tweeting is going to save lives. That's what's really going to save lives. I noticed that even people on the left, or whatever you want to call it, they have a serious issue with their lack of accountability. This accountability, that's what this shit is. Because when you do actions like this, you also have the possibility that maybe newspapers and publications and local news will give you that 30-second spot that says protesters were, rallying for Assange today. Boom, you just got Assange's name on the fucking news. That is a victory. It may be really small, but you got his name on the news. And things like that should not be discounted.
No. That's how it's so frustrating to me that people, and those, I genuinely believe that those people are intentionally trying to dismantle movements. They're trying to discredit movements. Because if you see it on Twitter, it's always the same people who spend all of their time shitting on activists rather than hitting people who have actual power. Listen, if I'm some chick in Ohio, I have no power. I have no influence. I have no money, no control. If you're more focused on me than you are on people who hold actual power, you have issues. Like, that's a problem. And so, yeah, it's always the same people. All they do is shit on activists all day long. That's all they do. And they're very obvious about it. So yeah, it's, every movement has its beginning, and you have to start somewhere, and you can either sit at home and bitch and moan, or you can actually do something. I'm not like a lay down and die kind of person. I will fight to the bitter end. That's just who I am. That's how I'm made. And that's, I can't help that. So I would much rather do everything humanly possible. As you said, I have kids. I have 2 kids. I want to be able to look at them in the face and say, I fought hard. I did everything that I thought I could do. And really, I don't even know, because I'm so self-critical, that I could honestly say that, because I always feel like I could be doing more.
I'm so there. It's an organizer thing. Like
I had intentions to go to DC this week to help Randy Credico flyer. I had a death in the family, and I'm like, I don't think I can make it work. And my friend Susanna's like, you've done enough. It's fine. We'll figure it out. And I'm like, but it's never enough. You know what I mean? Like, I feel guilty for not being able to make it to DC this week. But I think most activists feel that way. You know what I mean? Like a lot of us put everything we have into it and still feel guilty and like it's not enough. So yeah, it's just, people who want to criticize it. And I also notice that those people don't actually do anything themselves. They've never organized anything. They've never, I don't even know if any of them have ever even attended a rally or anything like that. So yeah, I used to, give oxygen to those people. And then honestly, Caitlin Johnstone, I learned a lot through her that it's never worth the effort. It's never worth the, trying to defend your character or whatever, because it doesn't matter what I do. I mean, I could literally cure cancer while saving babies from a burning building and like rescuing literally all of the cats on planet Earth, and they would find a way to be angry about it. So it doesn't matter what you do. They're always going to hate you. They're always going to criticize you. That's their whole purpose in life. And so I mute and move on. I don't bother with it anymore. It's really hard for me to give any credibility or give any, I don't care. You don't do anything. You mean nothing to me, like you're, I don't take your criticism seriously. I just can't, because you're not doing anything. If you think you can do it better, then go and do it. Don't bitch on Twitter.
Okay. So that's the thing that I always say to people. What should I do instead? Nobody ever has a suggestion.
Open. Listen, never. I'm open to suggestions.
I know, that's what I say.
Listen, I'm selfish. I want to free Julian Assange. Period. I don't care how that happens. I don't care who helps me. I don't care what I have to do. Like, if you have a suggestion, I'm 100% open to it. Give it to me. But they never have any suggestions. They just want to bitch and moan and criticize. And that's why I stopped giving them any credence whatsoever. And I just don't give a shit. You're useless.
Right. Absolutely. And, one thing we've DM'd about that's, I want people to really understand, and we don't have to drop names or anything, but I want people to understand, because a lot of people think that people in indie media are very, very united in things and stuff. And it's not the case.
No.
I've been doing a show over 5 years, and when I organize, I find that I hit up people I have done shows with, people people who I have worked with, I've done events with, and they just won't even return my DM when it comes to promoting something I'm working on. And it is heart-wrenching, especially because organizing is a 24/7 thing. It is your life. Yeah. There's so many things that go into it. And when you're like, cool, I have all these connections, and you've worked with these people, and they won't even, you can see they've read your messages. They just don't give a fuck, and they're not going to return it. And you see these people post, oh, Medicare for all. We need Medicare. Well, why the fuck aren't you returning my message about me saying, can you retweet this? Takes 2 seconds. So, and I know we have, so it's the same people, unfortunately. So give it, like I said, you don't have to say names, but touch on that frustration when you're trying to promote something like this.
Yeah, and I'm super annoying too. Like, I don't care. I'll come for you. I am not like people. And every time people get mad because I can't believe you reached out to that person. I don't give a fuck. I don't care about your personal beef with Tulsi Gabbard. I don't care about your personal beef with Nick Cruz from RBN. I don't care about your personal beef with whoever. I don't care. I will reach out to literally anybody. If you have a platform and I think that you can be helpful to me in order to promote our event or to, share information about Julian Assange, I will ask you to do that. But you're right. There's it's like, the same tried and true people who you can always count on, always to help you out, who are loyal, and who understand and they get it. And they will always retweet your stuff. They will always ask you to be on their shows to, promote your stuff, whatever you're doing. And I tell people all the time, you don't have to have me on. Like I can't tell you the number of times I have tried to get out of doing appearances numerous times. I tell people all the time, I can get you somebody cooler. Like I can get
I say that too. No, you can come on. I'm like, no, I'm part of an organization.
Yeah, I can totally get you somebody that's way cooler than me, whatever. But you can just share the flyer, retweet the flyer, retweet the GoFundMe, whatever it is, that it's really that simple, or share it on your show. Pop the flyer up on your show at the end of your show and say, hey, just so you know, there's this Assange event going on in October in DC. You should head out to this. Hey, list a couple of the speakers or whatever. Just tell your audience about it. You don't have to mention me. You don't have to say that I'm the organizer. You don't have to do any of those things. But you're right. It's a very frustrating thing when all you're asking for is a simple retweet. And people can't even be bothered to do that. And then you're right. They also then go out and tweet about how they care about free speech and they care about Medicare for all or whatever. But they can't be bothered to support the work that's being done in the streets. And that's super frustrating. But I think that generally it's the people who are also activists who are just happen to be in the indie media space. Because I only started doing shows to hype my activism. Like I just talked about this on INN earlier. People try to say that I'm a journalist, and I absolutely reject that label. I am not a journalist.
People call me that, and I'm like, no.
I am not a journalist. I have far too much respect. And by journalist, I mean legitimate journalism, like Eva Bartlett and Vanessa Beeley, and those kinds of people, Julian Assange, those kinds of people, John Pilger, Craig Murray, Chris Hedges. Those are journalists. I have far too much respect for that profession to even almost put myself in their company. At best, I'm a commentator. I don't really research stories and have sources, and I commentate on the work, the amazing work of other people. I am not a journalist. I reject that label. I'm an activist. I am an activist. I just so happen to do and appear on shows on occasion. So yeah, but I've noticed that it is generally people who are also in the activism space, who also happen to be in the indie media space, who are usually the most dependable when it comes to sharing actions and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about this event, because I cannot, when you announce the speakers, are you fucking kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me? Well, I know, because when I had Stephen Donziger on, people were kind of like, I love him, but he needs to speak out on Assange more and stuff.
I used to criticize him too. Yes. Thank you, Stephen. And I was critical of him. And I will be. Listen, I have a great deal of respect for Stephen Donziger, and I would have regardless of whether or not he spoke on Julian Assange. What he has done is incredible. What he's had to endure is incredible. But to me, it was a no-brainer that would be something that he would speak on. So it was frustrating that he was silent on it he would kind of tiptoe around it, or when Susan Sarandon would mention it, he would nod in agreement, but he wasn't really speaking out forcefully. And so it was honestly just disappointing that he wasn't more vocal about it. And so I openly criticized him, but he has really come around on it. He has really started to be more verbal, more vocal, and he is now one of our featured speakers at our event on October 8th. I am so pleased that he is coming. I'm so grateful to him. I know that he's already dealing with his own shit. And so to take the time out of his day and to put himself out there that publicly, to attend an event and to speak publicly like that, that's big. And I am very, very appreciative to him for doing it.
And did you reach out to all of these people, or did anyone say, hey, can I speak?
I don't think that we had anybody specifically ask if they could speak. We kind of, when we started organizing, we were all tossing ideas around, and really it was just kind of casting a net and seeing who, because will their schedules work out? Will they be even available to do it? And so it was just kind of casting a net. Like there were people that I have relationships with from doing this work for so long that it was, if they were available, I knew they would speak. Dan Cohen's a great example. He's a great independent journalist. He does a lot of work with Mint Press. He has a new documentary coming out about Haiti, actually.
Yes.
I should type that for him. He's fantastic. He has a new video out today about Haiti, but he also has a documentary that he'll be releasing fairly soon. But he's DC based. And every time we hold an event in DC, if he is in town and available, he shows up. And so it was people like him that I knew, or like Max can't make it, but Max Blumenthal is another example of that. He's DC based. If he's in town, he comes to every single one of our events. So there were people like that like they were kind of no-brainer asks. And then it was just kind of casting a net to see who else we could get, trying to use, other people's connections and like lean on favors and stuff like that, trying to see who we could get. And the speaker list that we have pulled out of our asses is, I can't believe that these people are going to
John Kiriakou. When I saw him in DC last time, like I legit fangirled. Like I'm not even gonna lie.
Yeah,
I was like,
I mean, my people, journalists, whistleblowers, and activists. Those are my people. And so those are the people I fangirl. My husband makes fun of me all the time because he's like, most people fangirl over like, Johnny Depp or Tom Cruise or whatever. And you fangirl over like John Pilger. And I'm like, but that's what I'm into. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's just my thing. But yeah, John Kiriakou, he's somebody else who has appeared at numerous events for Julian Assange. Obviously, he has been a vocal supporter for a very long time. He's fantastic because he has experience in these situations. Obviously, he has dealt, slightly different because he's a whistleblower, not a journalist, but a similar experience that he can speak to. He's been through the courts of Eastern District of Virginia. So he has like firsthand knowledge of what Julian Assange is up against. So having somebody of his caliber and of his experience speaking at our event is obviously going to be very powerful.
And you have Chris Hedges, which I'm sure people are like flipping the fuck out about.
I'm flipping the fuck out about it. Like, that's amazing.
I'm just going to tell you, when I met him a couple years ago, oh my God, dude is as intimidating as you think he's going to be. That's all I'm going to say. Because I went up and he was like,
I don't get intimidated by a lot of people. I don't get super nervous around people or anything like that. I'm awkward around everybody. That's just who I am. But I think I'm probably going to be a little bit nervous to talk to Chris Hedges.
I was only ever nervous in two people in my life. Well, Susan Sarandon, and I kind of flipped out, but internally. But Chris Hedges, I was kind of like, hi, because he's very like stoic and stuff. Yeah. And the other one was Shamu Baraka, but he's so nice. I don't know why I was so intimidated by him.
We tried to get him. He's unavailable.
Excuse me, Mr. Baraka. Hi, my name is Joy. Like, I literally sounded like that. I'm not even
if I get super nervous, it's usually somebody that I just really respect, and I'm afraid I'm going to say something stupid. Like I'm friends with Vanessa Beeley, and I still, every time I interview her, I get nervous. And she's like, I don't know why you're nervous. Like we're friends. Like we're friends. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I just don't want to sound dumb. You know what I mean? Like, you're Vanessa Beeley and I'm, some chick from Ohio. So yeah, the only time I ever get super duper nervous is if it's somebody that I just really respect and I'm meeting for the first time. And because I'm so awkward and I'm so self-aware of that, it's like this dialogue in my head, like, don't say something stupid, don't say something stupid. And then I say something stupid and then I panic. And so then I say something stupider because I panicked. And then it's like this, I spiral out of control. So I always have that running in my head, that fear. So yeah, luckily for me, when I meet him, I'm going to be extraordinarily busy. So it'll probably be a very brief, like, hey, thank you for coming. I think I can manage that without screwing it up too bad. Hopefully.
We'll go over, some of the other speakers because it's like,
it's intense. We have a lot, so I should probably pull up the all their little things here so that I don't forget anybody because I'll feel really kind of terrible. But I'm good at that too.
Say, I'm an asshole for saying this. I don't think she's going to be watching, but I can't go because I have a wedding. And I feel like such an asshole because I'm like, there are two reasons I would miss it, a wedding or a funeral, and I have a fucking wedding. No offense if she's watching. I love you.
It's a good excuse. That's a good excuse. That's acceptable.
But I may have kind of cried a little when I found out I couldn't
listen.
go. I'm like, no.
I know a lot of people who, and I feel bad because they really, really want to go, but it's, price prohibitive or whatever. And I get that. Right. But listen, I'm not just saying this because I'm organizing this event. This is going to be really awesome. I mean, I'm going to go over our speakers, but this is it's really going to be an amazing event with a lot of phenomenal speakers. And again, part of a historic global day of action. They're surrounding Parliament. We're going to attempt to surround the DOJ. This is really kind of a turning point in the Assange case. So it's a really, it's a big deal what's happening right now. So, okay. So we have Ben Cohen, who's the co-founder of Ben & Jerry's. So I want to give him a shout out because he has agreed to match donations for the billboard truck that Randy Credico is running in DC right now. So Randy's been down there for 8 weeks running the billboard truck, and so they're gonna have two running.
Shout out Randy.
I know. I love Randy so much. He's phenomenal. But he's been out there. Yeah, he's been out there flyering. They've been out there with the trucks. I think they're going to start running 2 this week and have the flyer for the event on it. Afeni went out today and helped him flyer. Shout out to Afeni. Thank you. So that's amazing. But yeah, Ben Cohen has agreed. So if you donate you can go to, I think it's Assange countdown to freedom.com. If you want to donate for the billboard truck, Ben Cohen will match every donation to keep the billboard truck on the street. So thank you, Ben Cohen. Obviously, you already mentioned Chris Hedges, Garland Nixon, amazing journalist, radio show host, and master of Zen. I still need him to teach me his ways because I am not Zen at all. Eliza Blue, who I love so much and who does really important work. She's a human trafficking survivor and now an advocate for other survivors of human trafficking. She's been going after the CIA, the UN, Twitter, all of these places who have an issue with whether it's child porn or human trafficking, all of those things. She has no fear whatsoever. And what I love about her is that she gets it. She understands how what is happening to Julian Assange affects what she is doing, and how it's going to affect the ability of future survivors to speak out against their oppressors. And so she has made that connection, and she is really good at vocalizing those connections and making other people understand that this isn't just about Julian Assange. It's about how this will impact all of us. So I'm very excited to hear her speak, and she's amazing for doing it. We have James Bovard, who's a libertarian author and journalist and political commentator. We made a very concentrated effort to reach outside of kind of the leftist bubble, because I speak on that all the time. This is not a left-right issue. It's an everybody issue, and it needs to be, we all just need to come together on this and fight together. We have Joe Loria, who is the editor-in-chief of Consortium News, which is an unbelievable independent outlet. If you're not following and supporting their work, you absolutely should be. So Joe Loria is going to be there. I also think they're going to try to live stream the event. We're going to be live streaming it across multiple platforms, but I think Consortium News is also going to.
That reminds me. Do you want me to reach out to Ford Fisher, or did you already do that?
We have already reached out to Ford Fisher. The problem that we're running into with media presence is that there's a women's march happening that same weekend. So it's going to be. Yeah, it's bad timing. It is what it is. We're going to try to do the best we can. I just don't know where listen, Ford, I would love to pressure you, but I love Ford, and I don't want to make him feel bad, because he's always been incredibly supportive. He covers most of our events. He's usually very hesitant to actually speak on any issues. He likes to remain kind of neutral. But he has been very verbal about his support of Julian Assange. And so I know that he cares about the issue. I just also understand that there's going to be a huge women's march happening, and that's a tough call for him to have to make in terms of what to cover. So I don't know for sure if he's covering the Women's March or if he's going to try to double duty it or whatever. But we'll see. Ford, if you're watching, come to our event, please. Jill Stein. I don't think she needs any introduction. Jill Stein.
He was the one that got Hillary. Russian.
Another Russian. Yeah, we got another Russian. So, I am Putin's buddy, so I have to invite his friends. It's what's only polite. John Kiriakou, we already mentioned. Randy Credico, who we just talked about, who is a radio host, a comedian, a lifelong activist. He's been in the Assange game for a very long time. He's also a dear friend of mine. I adore him. Reverend Annie Chambers.
Yeah, that's
she's a Black Panther. I mean, she's legit lifelong civil rights activist, from the womb, basically. She was in the street.
Birth on the March on Washington, got back up and kept marching.
Yeah, she is just bona fide. She is just badass. She is the definition of badass. So I'm
student of Malcolm X, friend of Fidel Castro. This woman.
Yeah. I mean, she's the real deal. And I've interviewed her, but I've not met her in person. So I'm super excited to meet her in person. Stephen Donziger, we already mentioned, super happy to have him there. We have Marcia Coleman Adebayo, who is a whistleblower for the EPA and former senior policy analyst. We have, who did I forget here? I'm bouncing around a little bit. Oh, we have Dave Decamp, who is an independent journalist, and he's the news editor at antiwar.com. He also just started a show called Anti-War News. I adore him. He does fantastic foreign policy journalism, and he's a great guy, and I'm really excited to have him there. And then we also have Dan Cohen, who I mentioned earlier, who's a journalist with Mint Press News, the new documentary he's got coming out on Haiti. We have John Stasevich. I'm not sure how he pronounces it. I'm sorry, John. But he's an unaffiliated independent candidate for president in 2024. I don't really do electoral politics, but I would be a hypocrite if I said, because people ask me, are you going to allow politicians to come? And I would be a hypocrite if I didn't, because I welcome everybody. If you want to fight to free Julian Assange and fight for the future of press freedom, welcome aboard. So yeah, of course, I would not turn somebody away just because they're a politician. I side-eye you, I don't trust you, but you're welcome. You know what I mean? Obviously, Savvy Sabs is coming. I'm so excited.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, she messaged me and she was like, hey, me and my husband might be able to make it down to the event. And I was like, a little light bulb went off in my head. So I went to our little organizing committee and I'm like, yo, my friend Savvy might be able to come. What do you guys think about having her as a speaker? And across the board, I was like, absolutely. So Savvy's going to be speaking. Esther Iverim, who is an author, artist, and award-winning journalist. I mentioned Dan Cohen. Kevin Gosztola, who is the premier journalist on all things Julian Assange, and also the Chelsea Manning case and other whistleblowers and things like that. He is the managing editor of shadowproof.com and also the curator of The Dissenter, which covers a lot of whistleblower news. And then we also have Chip Gibbons, who's a journalist and the policy director for Defending Rights and Dissent. He's been in the Assange game for a very long time. Great guy, does a lot of really amazing work. Did I forget anybody? Oh, and Scott Ritter. Scott Ritter, who's the former UN weapons inspector, author, and who has been taking a beating because of the Ukraine stuff. And then also we may have, we don't have them confirmed yet, but they are attempting to make it Aaron Matei and Spike Cohen. We'll see.
Aaron Matei and
Spike Cohen, who was a libertarian candidate for vice president, I think, in 2020.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's great. He's a longtime Assange supporter, has always been very verbal. The Libertarian Party in general is great on Assange. They have always been great on Assange. They are very verbal and vocal, very supportive. I reached out to the Libertarian Party. They offered to help me in any way that they could. They've been retweeting the flyer and all of that stuff. So yeah, the Libertarian Party on Assange is probably, it's probably my easiest audience. You know what I mean? They're very, I have better luck with them than I do with the left, honestly, which is sad, but that's where we are.
Well, I am so proud of you. I'm so excited for you. I'm so heartbroken I won't be there. But that is so freaking rad. And I can't wait to watch the video and everything. I mean, it's
crazy.
so awesome.
Yeah,
so
it's a crazy
awesome.
lineup. I honestly cannot believe that these are people coming. It's kind of like when I organized one of the actions that we organized in DC, and Max Blumenthal showed up for the first time, and I'm like, holy shit, Max Blumenthal just showed up to my event. I was so excited. But that's how I always feel when people show up, because, and listen, it's not about like just the big name blue check people. I love it when anybody shows up. But if we're being honest about it, we do need those bigger names in order to draw attention to the cause. And so anytime we can get somebody who has a platform and who has that kind of pull, that's always very, very helpful. And so the idea that we have this amazing list of speakers is, kind of mind blowing. And I'm very excited. I'm very grateful. And I also I really just need to make it clear. It's not just me. It is not just me. There are a lot of people helping me. Both of the New York Assange groups, the newly formed DC group, the Boston group, Assange Defense is helping, Randy's helping. I mean, there are so many people working behind the scenes. I'm just kind of the loud one. That's usually my role. It's just being the loud one. But they're honest, and I'm not even going to attempt to name them all because I will forget somebody and then feel horrible. But you guys know who you are. And they are working so hard, and they are pulling out all of the stops, and everybody is just getting it done. Like there's no like question about anybody's ability to get done what needs to get done. Everybody's just doing the thing. And I'm so appreciative to even be included in this group of people and to be part of this organizing team. And I'm so excited for the event. I think it's going to be our best one yet.
Well, it sure's, yeah. Those speakers, girl, I can't. Yeah. I can't. Yeah.
I know.
Well, I'll be there in spirit. Thank you again so much. Thank you for your activism, your organizing, your being outspoken for an issue that is so fucking important. And thank you to your crew too. This is amazing. There are so few of us activists and organizers who have a platform like actual activists and organizers. So it's so great to actually communicate with you and be able to talk with you. So thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Thank you for having me. And right back at you too. I mean, as I said earlier, activists, whistleblowers, and journalists, those are my people. I have a great deal of respect for anybody who's doing the work. And I see you doing the work all the time. I mean, I try as much as I can to call attention to what you're doing, to give due credit. And I wish that more people were, trying to do something. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of people who like to criticize. And I see you get it just as much as I do, probably. Do you have stalkers yet? I have stalkers now. I mean, it's a really strange thing. Yeah, it's a strange thing, but you don't back down and you're not intimidated, and we need more people like that. So thank you for the work that you're doing. Thank you for having me on to talk about my work. I will always reciprocate whenever I can. And yeah, I really appreciate the time and, just being able to hype the event.
Absolutely. And I want to leave everyone with a quote that Stephen Donziger said when I interviewed him. I said, Stephen, you've been through hell and back. Is the power of the people stronger than the people in power? And he said, yes, I believe it is. And if he can say it, let's go. Yeah. Seriously, let's fucking go. Thank you guys so much for watching our UN action. If you don't know, we are filing an official complaint with the United Nations Human Rights Council for leaving millions of people without health care. Do we trust the UN? Fuck no. But we're going to do it so we can get it on record and say this is a civil rights violation. This is a human rights violation. People are dying, people are suffering, and it's because of the United States. And we're getting that shit on record. So we've been working with human rights lawyers for over a year, and we will be filing this October. So we are going to be sending 100 video testimonials of people's experiences with being uninsured or underinsured. They're kind of horror stories, if you will. We'll be submitting 100 of them with the complaint. So if you have a story you'd like to share, we are taking them through the end of this week. Please go to m4m4all.org, and the 4 is a number 4. Because we're going to the UN in New York. We're not fucking around. Like that's the ultimate. Get it on record. Our country doesn't give a fuck. Pretty much. But thank you all again so much for watching, and thank you again, Misty, for joining.
Yes, thank you guys.